Breckenridge Pettit is not with us tonight. Dr. Hill?
I hear.
Mr. Hobbs?
I hear.
Mrs. Lundberg? Here. Mrs.
Started to
Bassel?
trend.
Ms. Schickman? And Mr. Smith is not here this evening.
Okay, I guess first on the agenda, well, first of all, I should say both Dr. Breckenridge Pettit and Mr. Smith are not here tonight, so I am chairing the meeting in their stead. Board member comments.
I will thank Saudi Surfer, which gave us a discount on coffee for hundreds and hundreds of people. So that was super nice. And then the district kitchen paid for the rest. And we're done. We've made it through all the buildings. Thank you to Jen and Mandy and Jody. Made over a couple hundred muffins, and it was just awesome. It was such a good experience. So we're done. But I wanted to throw out the Saudi Surfer was definitely part of the barista man. We'd call in like 50 drinks, and we'd show up and she'd have a lot of fun. She'd be amazing. Anyway.
Thanks again to you for making that happen, and the principals for letting us in. It was really fun to talk to the teachers in their natural habitat.
Any other comments? I have one. I think the board has received, or we've been copied on some correspondence with the Aspen concert series and sort of the conflict we've been having and scheduling there in terms of the school opening and them wanting to use the facility at the same time. I would just ask David to meet with those folks to maybe discuss the potential resolution.
Sure. We'd love to.
No, we're just following the agenda. So if there's no other comments, we'll move on to written messages from the board. Like I just mentioned, we did receive written messages from the Aspen concert series. We also received a thank you card from the Salida Early Childhood Center that's circulating around right now. So we'll just enter those messages into the record, and we'll move on to public comments now. First, I have Aggie. I believe is it Alvarez or Elvez? Elvez, okay. Aggie. Floor is yours. You can, get you one of those, and you can just stay seated or stand or however you're comfortable.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the Board of Education and Superintendent Blackburn. My name is Aggie Alves, and I'm a Salida resident and on the leadership team of Arc Valley Indivisible, one of the organizers of Saturday's pro-democracy rally. Nearly 1,000 people came out in support of institutions like public schools and groups like the LGBTQ and immigrant communities that are under attack. My remarks tonight are focused on the immigrant community. As you know, the designation of schools as safe places that kept ICE out of the schoolhouse was rescinded. This reversal, along with the threats of mass deportations, has created a climate of fear and anxiety in families, which impacts learning for our most vulnerable children. In response, school districts across the U.S. and here in Colorado took proactive steps to ensure their student safety and provide guidance and support to immigrant families. While federal protections are unstable, local school boards have the power to act, and that's what I'm requesting of you. I have 3 asks. First, revise your policies and regulations to reflect the current reality about the role of immigration officials. For example, policy JIH relating to student interviews, searches, and seizures, and regulation JRA-JRC relating to student records and information make no reference to requests from immigration officials, unlike Denver Public Schools for one, and I believe this is an omission that should be corrected. Also, in policy JRA-JRC, the place of birth is included as part of directory information, which, as you know, can be disclosed. In other districts, place of birth is not a part of directory information, and I would request this be changed in your policy. 2, adopt a Safe Schools resolution. It's important for families to know that you will not collect immigration information, that you will set clear protocols for handling ICE requests, that you will provide training to all staff, not just front office staff, on these protocols, and that you will proactively communicate this information to families. I ask that you join other districts in adopting a Safe Schools resolution with these commitments and send a clear message that you value safety, inclusion, and the right of every child to an education. And finally, 3, establish an advisory committee. There are a host of other actions that the district can take during these uncertain times, and it does take a village. There may be other policies that should be revised. The website could be updated so that, like other districts, it includes resources, information on how the district handles ICE requests, as well as an FAQ section. So parents have clear and accurate information. An advisory committee can provide you with assistance and feedback on these and other strategies to ensure that the needs of Salida's immigrant families are indeed being met. Thank you. And thank you all for the work that you do on behalf of families, and a special thank you to Kim and Jody Breckenridge-Pettit, who were so responsive when I first sent my first set of inquiries. It was refreshing to have someone respond so quickly, so thank you.
Thank you. Just hold that and I'll have you pass that maybe to Cheryl Wright.
Okay, I'm going to talk fast. I'm Cheryl White with Salida Aspen Concerts. For 48 years, Salida Aspen has brought world-class performances here. Aspen sends us 6 concerts a year, paying most of the cost for getting these performers. It would not be financially possible for us to do this without Aspen. This year, we're offered a concert August the 9th by the gold medal winner of the Clyburn International Piano Competition that was begun in 1962. This competition is held every 4 years. From a pool of 340 applicants representing 45 countries, 6 will compete in the finals that will end in June. When we were offered the gold medalist, the only other time in 2022, people flew in from Washington, D.C., from California. They came by van loads from states around us and the Front Range. We're the smallest venue that this individual will perform in, probably for the rest of his or her life. Aspen will host the winner's first concert on August the 8th and have offered us the second concert. When we started working with facilities manager at the high school in January, the earliest she would accept booking requests, she said the auditorium was not available for the last 2 concerts, August 9 and August 16. We requested a meeting with the school to see if something could be worked out. After many emails and 2 meetings, we were told that we could have the 16th, but not the 9th. We have attempted to find another venue, but an appropriate one is not available. When we were told the 9th was out, the reason given was that 5 months from now, the custodians know that they will not be able to clean the building between the time we are there on Saturday and school starts on Monday. Although they offered us the auditorium on the 16th, seemingly a more difficult cleaning task since school would have been in session the week before and the week after. After we offered to clean the area ourselves, we were told that was against policy. When we offered to pay overtime or bonuses to the school staff, we were still refused. We were told that if we give the school our concert dates earlier next year, we might avoid this problem. We gave the dates to the school the first month we were allowed to, January. We've told that the school is used by over 300 community organizations in a year. I would guess that the vast majority of these are related to athletics. We host 6 summer concerts. When the school wanted a new high school in 2010, a plan was made to go to the community to see what they would support. After many meetings and much work by many people, the issue was passed. After many commitments were made, including that the school was a community facility and would continue to be used by the community as before. There are at least 38 articles in the Mountain Mail that attesting to this, including having a community watchdog to ensure that what was promised to the public will happen. We have a long history of using the auditorium for concerts going back to 1977. In fact, nearly 90% of our concerts have been held at the high school. Up until post-COVID, we had few problems booking the auditorium, even on Saturdays before school began on Monday. We leave the building clean and are good stewards of the facilities. I can talk about the piano if you'd like. There is an incredible opportunity for our students and local music lovers and an opportunity to showcase Salida. What we want is some special understanding from the school due to this extraordinary opportunity for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen Lang.
I'm Jen Lang, Dean of Students at Longfellow. My theme is transitions. School is all about transitions, transitioning to next grades. So tonight, I'd like to just highlight a few. I'll start with high school. I went to the school accountability meeting last week and was excited to see some new, I will have a senior next year. Excited to see some new course offerings and the schedule. Just kudos to all that hard work. And in our building alone, we have 6 staff members who will have graduating seniors this year. Seems like a big bubble. And kudos to Mr. Shuffle, our principal, for thinking ahead to the senior breakfast and just reaching out to teams and saying, hey, we've got all these moms, they happen to all be moms in our building, and just supporting each other, being able to go to that. So that's fun. All right, I'm going to hop all the way down from seniors to kindergarten. We created this year a 1-pager on how to register your student. This is something new. We're hoping that this allows students to register early so we can get class placements. We added a QR code, so how to register your students. Really trying to encourage parents to use Infinite Campus. If we can start them early, hopefully they're hooked in. And then important dates we have highlighted here, which is my next one. So we highlight those. We are going to do our 2nd annual Hop into Kindergarten. It is an open house for families, so students and children, on what to expect. So they get to come and see the school, meet the teachers. We got great feedback last year. We do a cute little scavenger hunt to get them to move all, and they end up with LPA, our parent association, outside, connecting them, hoping to get them hooked in to that. And then we have hooked onto there. We did last year, we gathered frequently asked questions from parents, and then some really cute ones from children. So we might update those again. So that was really cute. And then the biggest one is our next one. We are the Mountain Lions, so we are calling this Little Lions Tiptoe to Kindergarten. So going back to that theme of transitions, that transition from Early Childhood Center or Discovery Ranch or Sunshine Inn, where they might have been there since they were 2, right? Like, so these big relationships, this is a big jump to kindergarten. So what we're offering this year is a modified first week of school. So what we're doing is we're doing a morning session and an afternoon session, and that will be that first week of school, October 11th to the 14th. We took a model. What's that? Did I say that wrong?
August.
What did I say?
October.
That really would be a modification, wouldn't it? Thank you. I didn't even catch that. Oh, I was on, yeah. We modeled it off of high school, how high school splits their counselors. So students with last names ending from A through K will be in the morning, and L through Z will be in the PM. What this allows is for students to be in a smaller class size with their teacher, so they can start building relationships, getting to know them better so they can hit the ground running with that full week. It also, having taught kindergarten for a long time, that first week of school when you were 5 is a very, very long, long day. So it gives them a chance to ease into the longer, more academic setting as well. What this is doing, I'll go more into the why. What this is doing is this is replacing an old program that we had called Ready, Set, Go, which only reached a handful of children. So this actually old program started before school, reached maybe about 20 students, and then replaced with a teacher that maybe wasn't going to be their classroom teacher for the rest of the year. So what this program will do, or not program, what this modification will be, every kindergartner will get that same Ready, Set, Go experience, and they will be with their classroom teacher to build those relationships. Buses will run at their normal route before and after school. Parents will need to pick up and drop off midday. Students will not be eating lunch at school. they're going to have their snack in the cafeteria. If you have ever taken a group of kindergartners that first day into the lunchroom, that's like, so we thought by having snack in there first, they can, start to feel more comfortable in there. So then when they have to go through the line, it goes a little bit smoother. Of course, we have a fabulous school nurse that will be available for questions, medications, and help with that. And then the regular school hours would be 7:50 to 3:50, and that would start for kindergartners on August 18th, not October. And then, of course, we have it, trying to reach all of our families, we have it in Spanish as well. Am I missing anything, Mr. Shefflin?
They're getting used to their teacher, it'll be in their setting too. So not just nursing, ready, set, go.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they do these two classrooms, two teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Having that setting,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, no, thank you. And this was actually the kindergarten teacher's idea. They really wanted more equity. They wanted to reach more children, where the Ready Set Go was just a handful of children. So they pitched it to me. I pitched it to Corey, and here we are. So I'm sure there'll be some things to iron out as we go along. But just wanted to get the word out. Answer any questions. One other partnership that I'm working on is with the Parent Association and Guidestone. So a lot of times parents will drop. I mean, sometimes I think the transition is almost harder for the parents. Yes, thank you. That was what that's a great question. So working with LPA, our Parent Association, and Guidestone about like, where do you go? So you drop your kid off, you don't have to run off to work maybe until later. So working with them to brainstorm some ideas of building community. We have a beautiful garden space. So maybe making it there, having coffee in the morning, maybe some bubbly waters for that afternoon session. So that is still kind of in the works. I'm open to ideas about how to support families, because it is sometimes.
You run home to your husband and say, I need to have another baby.
No.
That's what I did. I was like, I just dropped off my baby. We need to have another one.
But yes, that is another important piece of that transition of like supporting parents. I know the preschools do a fabulous job of that parent education. So really, instead of just kind of coming to this cliff and dropping off this cliff, trying to make that transition smoother. So open to ideas for that.
Can I just, Corey, next month, can you make sure you give us an update on how kindergarten registration is going? I know it started this last week, and I know there's some other shoulder times to that, but
Yep.
can you just give us an update?
True. And then Teresa too can tag in. I know that Jim comes to register all of their students. So we'll have a lot more data for, numbers for that too.
Good, that's great news. I know this
Mhm.
this helps everybody, so you read it and more.
Yeah.
So registration.
Teresa and I went to an early childhood council meeting with the other preschools and started to do some more network. That was really nice, and pitched this idea to them. So trying to build in more relationships with the other preschools so that we get registration in early.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, next, I need a motion to approve the agenda with the following changes. We're going to table item 3C, which is approving auditor for the previous year's audit, and table that for a May meeting. Move first to review and approve policy JFAB, continuing enrollment of students who become non-residents, and policy JIH, student interviews, interrogations, searches, and arrests. And then number 3, update item, what numbers are 3 FI32JN, community service, to be repealed. I have a motion for those adjustments to the agenda.
So
Second? Any discussion? On.
He's ready. We appreciate it. Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Mr. Hawks?
Aye.
Mrs. Lundberg? Aye. Mrs. Baxter? Aye. And Ms. Sherman?
Okay, next on the agenda is reports. We don't have any guest reports tonight. We don't have any campus reports either. District reports.
yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff going on, but I'm pretty excited getting towards the end of the year. There's 6 weeks left, which is kind of crazy to see how close it is. The teams are in a really good spot. I'm just really happy with what the staff are going to do with families and vice versa. I know we did have conversations about ICE and other stuff. I want to make sure that the community knows we have a good relationship with all of our families who are deeper to those places of concern, and we have seen all of them in the school at this time. So I want to make sure as we continue to review what policies and places we do have in spot. The other thing I wanted to go over real quickly was grade 3 through 5 literacy adoption. So I'm going to see this around. So, and Corey's here as well to help. You know, I've not been since the pandemic saying we need to pause, get our heads wrapped around systems. I think they're in a good place. I think this summer and the fall we'll be able to come back to those policies around how do we do the curriculum adoption in a nice orderly fashion year after year, picking another one, making sure we get through them all. Those are those policies, the IG and IJ that we looked at last month. But grades 3 through 5 over 2 years ago, or was it 3 years ago, Corey? 3 years ago, the company that was READ Act approved by the Department of Ed said, oh, by the way, we're not going to support this anymore. We just adopted it. And so we have kind of hour to say, how can we extend that? We've ordered their back stock. We've said, do you have any left in the warehouse? How can we push this off? And we're at that place where we can't push it off. So we went through our process, which we're doing together. Representatives from every one of the grade level teams will be affected. In this case, 3rd through 5th. We're going to go to the Department of Ed and say, what are the, in this case, the READ Act controls what curriculum they will approve. And so we ordered all those curriculums, and the teachers went through each and every one, found the finalists, and then they really sit down with those finalists and spend a lot of time with them to go through it. They really chose this. They were kind of, it was almost a 50-50. They could see either one, but at the end of the day, they liked how this provided resources to the teachers to deal with extensions, we might call it. So you've got the generic kid that doesn't actually exist, and then you've got, it's like Gibson and Towns. They liked the resources in this. They thought it would be easier for teachers who might be newer or not as much veterans, who are more reliant on resources, as well as culturally, linguistically diverse students. They liked those extensions as well. They liked the text, but they liked the other one. And the other piece, in the end of the day, they liked, well, this one aligns to CMAS closer. They liked how it affected the kids and taught them how to think in a different way, and provided those things. So that's where it's at. You always set aside $80,000 a year for resource adoption that falls within that budget. And I was able to get another $6,000 knocked off it today, and I keep on trying to get more money off that. Corey's smiling. I'm like, give me a chance. I'll get some money. And so it's pretty straightforward. You can see the quote. And that's in the consent agenda. There's not a lot of choices here. In that sense, we don't have a curriculum or resources. So we have to do something. That's what the teachers recommend, and I have no reason not to support that recommendation wholeheartedly. Corey, was there anything that you felt like you should share and add to that? think our first quote was like, yeah, so, I mean, we can go through questions if you want. I brought this like 2 weeks ago or last month, I can't remember. That's one unit. When we say a curriculum, that's one unit. That's not the whole curriculum in that blue bag there, or the third grade that the teachers selected. So I think it meets all of what we're looking for. The other part was really important, we didn't mention, was professional development / implementation. Having somebody help the teachers have time to learn. How do you go through that? Because to just flip through it and read it would take you days and years to get really familiar. So that comes inside of this program. No, we'll try and put that into the professional development on those opening days. It's a competitive space, but it's really important for these teachers to get that. The reason we're trying to make sure we get approved now is we'll have so many trainers that come and do it in person. And we want to try and get on their schedule first because everyone's opening the school at the same time. And so if you're last in line, you don't get it. And we set it up, the teachers asked for this. They wanted to have like a generic session. Here's how we get started. Work with it for a month or two, and then be able to go back to the trainer and say, okay, let's really spend some time. Because now that I've actually used it, I have a whole different set of questions than I had like a half ago. So we think it's the right setup, and then if there's still any more, that'll be something else.
So, I don't.
Each grade level, there's $16,300 in consumables. So how does that work after this initial $80,000 that's been budgeted for it?
It's great. This is the hard part, particularly for most teachers like you and I. You can't buy the textbook and then hold on to it if you want to change in 7 years' work. It really is an issue for us, as like all school districts, to struggle because we've all built our budgets on a world that doesn't exist anymore. Everything is moved to subscriptions. And so we can't even get the full curriculums and the resources to people. It's not just because we want to be on the computer or so that. Everything has been moved to consumables now. Part of me wants to say this is a corporate takeover and they've done a good job of taking advantage of tax dollars. That would probably be my bet. And it's still the way it is. So what we went through was, I'm going to look on page 2 of 4 and look at grade 3. They're in blocks of grades. Of 5 lines down, you'll see the big number, 163 times 100 for 16,300.
Right.
Right. But you'll notice that's a 5 years. So the reason I couldn't get them to take all of the shipping and handling off this is because for the next 5 years they'll be shipping us materials and giving us access to the digital side.
Okay. That's
So, and that's so it keeps on coming. And this is why we had to make this choice because the last company stopped printing the stuff, so there's nothing to send us. So we were forced into this solution. And I like this one better than the one we're setting aside the teachers do.
So we're good for 5 years though at this price.
Yep. And I think that's another reason I want to look at because our policy has like a 7-year cycle for curriculum adoption, but everything that's being sold to us is 5 years. And they say, well, you can buy it 1 year at a time. Of course, that price is much more just like paying monthly car insurance, they charge you a lot more for that option. It's not reliable. But if it's only 5 years, that means in 5 years, we might be in a situation where we're no longer printing this resource, and so we have to do it again. There's just a lot to really think through. Our resource adoption, how it relates to curriculum, these different things. I don't know there are old solutions, the right solution, lots of reasons.
And you feel good, both of you, that this company
Yes,
will be reliable?
you would know them as Pearson. As a new teacher. And they have a strong relationship with the Department of Ed, so it's like in 5 years, they're still going to be on that approved list. I don't know if that's a corporate thing that happens, I just know it exists, and so it's part of the reality. I don't want teachers to learn a curriculum unapplied every 5 years. Just update a curriculum that teachers have fallen in love with, and get the next edition or whatever, versus have to like retrain the whole way to the reality. That's on your consent agenda. I can't see any reason why you vote no. Of course, you're voting for that. We did also, just from the campus thing, I gave you this blue print off. I wanted you to see this. CASB, the Colorado Association of School Boards, that you're part of. If you're just here, you got your public comment. I think this is exciting stage. It's okay if you step out. There's no social, like negative, you feel like no one is going to have any social judgment if you're like, sun's still up, I'm leaving, I got my words in. Just to be clear, feel free to step out. We're here for a couple more hours. This is two things. By the June report, the June board meeting, we're hoping to have a quote for either board books. This is what CASB purchased, or board docs. We're clear that the board would like us to upgrade that. But CASB's already brought this, and so we're investigating this. Kim has been reaching out to all of her other kind of board secretary connections and saying, how has board docs actually worked for you? And she's getting a mixed bag, and Kim's what she's running. So we're trying to explore this one this month. I just wanted to give you guys an update, knowing that in the June board meeting, I would expect to bring you a quote for one or the other in a recommendation. I think they're almost the same thing, but we're trying to do our due diligence. Because if we can stay inside of CASB, there might be some benefits to that. So I wanted you guys, if you wanted to look more into this, you could. We are doing that, so I just want to give you an update. The other one you got has got 2 pages to it. One is a really long spreadsheet that's so small it's obnoxious. So I can get you some readers like I need. That's kind of there for you to look at a little bit later. I bring that up because I know as a board, as we're looking, heading over to the CBT, I've got another CBT meeting all day Friday. So we'll be looking at teacher pay. This gives you some of the salary schedules for teacher pay at the master's level, master's 48, which would be the highest master's salary schedule. And also looks at per diem. It's really hard. It's hard to know how to compare apples to oranges to cherries, right? Because how many days does this district work? How many days does this district work? And so per diem is the best of an impossible comparison storyline. Somebody's going to say, well, we all work the same amount of hours, and there's other factors. You can look at it lots of ways. But I wanted you to see this because when I'm building a new salary schedule, at the end of the day, I got to break it down per diem, right? Because that's the only way I can look at, administrator, dean, teacher, new teacher, experienced teacher, coach. Like I've got to look at those things so I'm not paying somebody more than somebody who's supervising effectively. Because it doesn't work out. And then you multiply that times 200 days, or 196 days, or whatever the number is to try and get in and look at that salary schedule. So I gave you a couple of things. This position, you don't need to take any action because you've already approved the FTE. The assistant superintendent design that we hoped for was not giving us the right candidates. Okay? And I know I gave a report on this, so the team was pretty clear, the admin team agreed, rather than trying to force somebody who's not the right person, let's change our design. So it's an extra step that I've gone back. I'm gonna be looking for a curriculum and instruction director. So you have then the job description. I've kind of shown you what I've crossed off. Really just focusing in because the teachers continue to be clear. Jen and I were at a big communications kind of sense making activity on Friday. There's no confusion that the teaching staff want more help on curriculum instruction and professional development. They want us to help them. So this position is right on point to what that perception and that request is, and everything else is stripped out of it basically. There's one or two things that I just have to put somebody at the central office, like a Title IX complaint officer. It can't be me. So that's if somebody feels like they're not being treated right. They got to be able to make a complaint. I'm the kind of the judge who listens to the case from all sides and makes a decision. So I can't be the complaint officer, the investigator, and the judge, jury, executioner kind of style. So we're going to maintain that. So I'll put that there. Gifted and talented, I just can't get it to what it needs. So we're going to have this person do that as well as the assessment. So that gets you to the organizational chart. And Will's going to give you the look over there that he's been giving me for the last week. I can't do this list, right? Because basically, in order to make this happen, and all right, I'll just do it. Okay, I'll just do this. And it means I can do a lot of things partially well. I can't do everything well, right? So it means if it takes me 12 months to do something, or I hope to, I'm going to have to give myself 24 months. So I'm going to have to say, that one gets a C effort, because I'm giving an A effort over here. This is the reality of really making sure we're driving our money and our resources towards instruction and towards teachers. This is one of those costs. Is we'll have to talk as a superintendent board of education. On that list, there's probably some other things. What do we need to get an A effort? And what are we all going to say that's a C effort? And we'll live with it. And that's going to be a struggle, and we'll enter into in that sense. I think the other thing the team is we're going to continue to train our own. So we see continue that dean program at the principal level is yielding good stuff. It's positive. Lots of great examples where that's done during our own. Same thing with that assistant superintendent at district level. We're going to have to train our own level because we're not even involved in the money issue. And I don't think that's the way to solve it. It's just throw a bunch of money. So that's the recommendation. There's nothing we need to do. It's just I want to make sure I'm changing directions and trying to read and learn as best we can. Do you guys want to have any questions on that one?
So you think the lack of response is due to the salary?
That is what everyone believes when they're trying to pull from the salary. A basic,
What's the salary for the position?
109 it starts at. So your basic principal in the DPS system, I believe, Michelle, last you said about 150. Yeah, for a secondary principal is your starting spot for principal. So to get to a district level, we had 2 of 7 applicants have some building principal experience. They were not a fit. They would be nothing that we would recommend to them. And then everyone else was teacher who had no building principal experience. So really the key, the nice part of having Will the last few years is if I get hit by the proverbial Mack truck test, Will keeps on going. The people we had would not be somebody I would say, here's the keys to the kingdom. What that means then is the principals are going to get support on curriculum instruction, vertical teams are there, the things they want help with to get better at, and that means if I'm out on vacation, Jesse's in charge of something different. It's going to go through that older school thing. Jesse's really excited about that. You are in charge of Evelyn, and You have 24 hours to make change. So when we think about on the security side, it's a big deal. Being able to keep all the response in sync and consistent, it's hard and it's difficult. So we're gonna have to create some backup layers for those concerns. We're gonna have to pinch there to get our energy on towards curriculum instruction, which I'm super excited for, because if all that we really have to, we can focus on that, means our district's in a good spot. So I know it's a long one, but this is kind of my month to talk about those things. Gifted and talented. I want to let you know about that program. So that is not something we are going to get the highest marks on. Okay? That's why we take the little bit of money we have and we give it straight to the kids. It just approved in total today, approved almost $10,000 going to kids' registration for their events. So whether that's a GT kid trying to go to a space camp and sort of give the money to families so that they can get that special extension activity. And then the DI teams did really well in our county. We had 9 teams, many of them qualified for globals. One of the teams connected to us is chosen to go to globals, and so we've got a check for them to pay for the registration. And then they have a matching grant, so as much as the kids raise, we'll keep on matching and helping them overcome. It's like $5,500 in registration fees. It's not their travel costs. So DI is in a good spot. We are looking at trying to consider the DI piece. Do we support it further with coaching? Does it become an extracurricular activity? What does that mean? There's always implications on that. If you lift one thing up to do slight someone else in the community, and that place that we always live, consistency. So those are some other things. ELL, we got another ELL teacher. I think we are on meeting compliance and getting those needs there. I still think that's an area of growth for us. Public comment tonight can be embedded in that, but I think no matter what, even those kids where they're at, we're going to continue to get better at it. GT SPED's in a good spot. We're in a great spot. SPED. We have a high caseloads in kindergarten and 5th grade this year. So those will be the pinch points. And we never know who's going to walk into the childhood center. It's always just a ribbon of surprise that we get to open up. So we'll see, but I think we have all the right staff, and we're adding more staff. We have more than enough staff and specialists for a good spot for that to deal with, but they're working on caseload right now. I will say the BOCES curriculum director, or special ed director, is doing great. It's a fabulous solution. We can afford it. And BOCES is kept a flat budget for this year. So they are not increasing. They did a good job of looking at their budgets. Will, is there anything else inside your world, non-finance, that we need to just update?
No, I think it was pretty much all said in the board report, unless there's any questions to any of those items.
Okay. I know Aaron's got some stuff on operational wish list. I sat with Sean. We're working on lining up all the capital wish list projects, trying to get those rolling and scheduled for the summer. I think we're on pace in that space. And then the only thing I add is Jim from communications on that was busy using it. We took all this perception data from 3 different surveys and really looked at it with about 35 of us in the room of staff. So that's collaborative bargaining teams, the academic council, the secretaries, the admin team. Looking at it going, here's how teachers and staff are perceiving things. Some of the data I've never expected to see, the trust and collaboration, the perception of staff is that their trust and collaboration with their own teams are like 96% favorable. Right? You got 1% saying you might leave, and you got about another 4% of them weren't sure. This is back in December. That matches. We've had about, what is it, 4%, given the number of rehires of positions open. 4%. So now we're putting that together, and then you will get that with the staff kind of interpretation of that data. You'll get the raw data, and You'll also get a communications plan that deals with that, deals with technology, deals with all kinds of strategies. And you get that in the June board meetings that attends this year.
Communications plan, is there any sort of branding logo work going on?
Yep.
So could we try to have the logo be the same on every sports uniform in the district? And people don't get to create their own logos?
Yes. One of the great parts about going and doing this work is we will simplify some things. One of the frustrations someone's going to have is they will not have as many options.
There's a lot of
grades,
options right now.
and right now we are really good on flexibility, and we will bring more structure, which will reduce flexibility.
Like hundreds of
And we'll
logos.
create some rules, and then the first year I'll have to be really rigid on the rules. Somebody's gonna get really frustrated by that, and then we'll find our balance point 3 or 4 years later. So those are the things going on. Is there anything you guys want to ask about before we jump into consent and move on?
Yeah, I think if anybody has anything for any of the principals and managers, we can let those folks go on to their lives as well.
Do you want to take a cookie to go?
That was really good. Freshly made.
Thanks, you guys. I'm gonna stand up because my stress might.
You really did hurt yourself.
What?
You really did
I
hurt
had
yourself.
surgery 2 weeks ago.
You did.
What?
ACL. Any discussion? All right. Ready for the roll?
It's just thank you, Karen and David. It's obviously a lot of work. I think you might have gotten more policies than any of the rest of us
Yes.
did who reviewed books. I definitely feel like Jay might be the biggest, huh?
Is that kind of the end of it?
That's it.
This
So
is it?
now we'll walk this out through June, and then next year we'll go back and say, okay, what were all the ones we're like, policy looks good, is that what we're actually doing? Or, hey, we wanted to go back and actually discuss that policy. So now it'll be there. I want to give you a compliment from our lawyer. She was like, basically, we didn't think you could do this. We were kind of laughing at you when you said you were going to do this. So we exceeded all of the legal team's expectations that we could do to get to the end of this. So but this is the end.
All right. Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs?
Aye.
Mrs. Umber?
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal?
Aye.
Ms. Sherman?
Okay, no items for discussion. I just gotta remember what we moved or changed around. I don't think we added anything, did we?
Yeah, they actually all just got moved in.
Yeah. Okay, so action items. We're approving the second reading of some policies, so I need a motion to approve the, so we should just go through these real quick. To approve for second reading policy GBEE, which is the staff use of internet and electronic communications. Section I, policy book proposed changes, and there's 13 of them. About half of them looks like they're going to get repealed. Those are IGA, curriculum development, IHACA, law-related education, IHAM-R, health and family life, sex education exemption procedure, IHBB, gifted education, homeschool reg, repeal, primary, pre-primary education regulation, repeal that, concurrent enrollment, repeal, concurrent regulation, instructional resources and materials, online instructions, repeal, grading system repeal, class ranking, and then early graduation. Okay, any discussion on any of those policies?
Discussion, but with all the repeals, is there kind of a consistent theme that they were like overlapping each other or contradicting each other or just
So
no
last
longer
time I think we did it was
applicable?
2008. And since 2008, a lot of laws have been written. So when the laws get rewritten, CASB, who's our guide, goes and writes a better policy. And sometimes they leave the old solution behind because it's a significant change in law. And we didn't picked up the new one and kept the old one. And that's the worst thing legally is to have two answers to the same question. So lawyers are very happy with it. So comments, it's a good thing to reduce that.
Any discussion?
Any others?
Dr. Hill? Mr. Hobbs?
Aye.
Mrs. Umber? Mrs. Pascal?
Aye.
Ms. Sherman?
Okay, next we have, we need a motion to approve the salary schedule steps.
Second.
Second. Okay, any discussion on that? Can you have like a little bit of overview, I guess, of what we're actually hearing?
It's important for sending out contracts early, which is a big push we wanted, right? Because if you don't know if you're giving the steps and levels, you can't get the right contract. And obviously on the bargaining team, we made it really clear with the district that that was a high priority to them, was to make sure that the salary schedules are what we follow and we don't get too creative. So this is executing that and puts us in a good spot to go in good faith to the bargaining team and say, you asked the board for the winter. Aaron, how much does this represent? once you approve bigger steps for everybody in their salary schedules. So it changes that number. I think last year, the budgetary number wasn't actually, budgetary was 150. So it is a little more than most There's actually more teachers than you would think. I put a number on it for good reason. There's more than you think who have been at the same salary schedule rather than getting professional development done. In many cases, decade more. So they've been, even though you've given more money, their salary is actually not moved because they want to have an interest in whatever reason moving into other lanes of education, which will allow them. It's not just you get moved over, it also then opens up more cells because the salary schedule encourages people to grow and professionally and it's rewarded. One, automatically in a different salary lane with the introduction of more options in more years.
Like hours of professional development, because it's not necessarily degrees always, right?
No, in our district you can come two different ways. Every 8 college credit hours, so semester credits. That's how it's designed. So every 8 more college credits you get, then you can go on. But the ratio the Department of Ed works on is a 15-to-1 ratio. And we give licenses, and so that's how we do the US. So if you went to a 2-day seminar on dyslexia, right, and you got 15 hours of contact time on that topic, we give you a certificate, you can turn it in, that's 1 week. So, and then you can have a blend of those two things. It's more complicated on the record keeping side.
And then do we pay for, like, if a teacher went to that conference, do we pay for that?
Yeah, it's really nice for a teacher, and then so I could pay for you to go, pay for your sub. You could bring those hours back and cash them in that you had enough to move on the salary schedule. In addition, many times when you go to a nice conference, they'll also have a connection with the university, maybe out of state, and say, hey, if you want to pay, I think they're $90 a credit hour, then you can get college credit rather than contact hours. So they could pay $90, turn it into a college credit, there's no transcript, turn that in, and then we reimburse them for normally $45 a credit hour. So then it costs them about $40 left.
There's also a piece of it that's important through the partnerships CPCs, and that is also running all of the it's actually on the teacher's education, their master's degree, which I think is and we have multiple teachers go through that pathway, they great chunks of money.
So you would pay for their tuition, they've done the hard work, they pay for their tuition, and you return it back to them. And you so it's great.
Is it common, like this breeding in districts? Like that's just education, just breeds at a certain level?
Yeah, and I think there's good reason for it. Take somebody who got their bachelor's degree in 1972 and is still teaching. You want them to be learning new things. That's why every profession requires it. With the licensure piece, and so there's good reason to kind of push that and say we are more interested. And here's the financial reward, and people who are continually trying to get better and learning and learning. So there's benefits to that. Any other questions about? And again, I pulled it out because I think it's important for the bargaining team to be really clear and make sure that Aaron can go write contracts by the end of the week and get those out rather than waiting for the May budget before he writes a contract.
Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs?
Aye.
Mrs. Lundberg? Aye. Mrs. Haskell? Aye. And Ms. Sherman? Aye.
Okay, next on the agenda is operational, approve the operational wish list, and the motion to approve that. Two ladies over here. Crushing it. Okay, could we have a little bit of a already on top of it? So
Yeah, I'm passing this out now. Usually for board meetings, I budget till 9 o'clock, and I'm big on budgets. So buckle up. We got 2 hours on this one item, and no, I'm just kidding. We had a lengthy discussion about this last month. Many of the items on here. This is again just I want to highlight one of my areas that me and David are working a lot on growing the business office next year. Is some of the confusion about the approval cycle. Like this is a great example. So in order to approve the teacher at the bottom of this list, and to get somebody on staff, you kind of needed to do that 2 months ago to actually start putting out applications. But then we have the wish list, and then you have the budget. Like you're approving it 3 or 4 times throughout the course of the cycle. And so we want to be able to be really transparent, but we also don't want to put a bunch of extra work on all of you. So I'm going to try to find better solutions to that going forward. But this is still the process that's been in play, and I think it is a very good process for us to be transparent. Like I said, we had a lengthy discussion. There were a couple changes on this. I think David has spoken to many of you individually at different moments in the last month. The biggest things I wanted to note is the stuff that's highlighted in yellow was officially only added today, even though it's been in discussion for a while. We have huge participation numbers, and it's not just been a fall sport thing. It's continued on. I think we have people who can attest. I think we have 70 in middle school track. So we're to a point where like the question is 3-4 coaches. How do we do this? How do you function? How do we allow our activities department to be nimble? DI is a great example where they can be nimble and bring people in without you having to approve a full FTE. And so we're looking at different solutions. So this is one possibility. Basically, we're asking to approve that amount of money to go into our activities where we can kind of find some solutions. One of the things that we've kind of talked about and spoke with Marco and Jesse about is having some type of hourly kind of substitute coaching position almost. So if wrestling gets 50 people, maybe you have people that are going to the meets, you've got your main 3 coaches, but you've also got, hey, during practice and training sessions, we need more supervision. Maybe we can pay a couple people 3 times a week, to do that. So that's kind of the amount of money that we figure gets us in that starting point. And that kind of covers the reason I linked that to the bottom is that kind of helps us with these additional coaching positions. I can speak just to the soccer perspective of it. It's a great example. I'm expecting 51 soccer players next year. I can go to any games with 3 coaches and manage a team. Training sessions with 51 is a lot harder. So if I can have somebody here who can run 2 or 3 training sessions, I imagine track's similar, volleyball is similar. I know it could solve some of these issues without a full position. So it's kind of a way to be nimble and give them some space to do that and actually adjust. I know that it's hard to always know what numbers you're going to have going into a season. So, the problem is we're constantly reacting to those numbers. And I think if we can build this solution, then at least we have some proactivity.
So would you travel with 51 kids?
Well, that's the next question. No, I mean, it depends on that's going to be very activity dependent and how you can manage that. Like soccer would be a really good example for me. We're probably going to have to split in some cases and go to different places. We've talked about this. So that's going to raise some of the cost on transportation. Because for me, you don't have anywhere where you can play 3 matches with daylight and things like that. Plus, we're going to have to find 5A schools with C teams and things like that for our JV to play next year. So we're looking at ways to do that. Whereas it's slightly different when you're talking about a football team or a track team. Like you have one track meet, you take 2 buses and you can go. It'll be really unique. But that's going to kind of have to be an activities department managing each
other. There's
organization.
going to be substitute bus drivers, right? Because their money, the way they're able to pay their hospitals by taking these trips.
And then the other thing is buses. So if you have 70 kids, now our buses are ratio at 71 passengers, but you're not putting 71 high school buses. You're not going to have that. Some middle schoolers maybe. But yeah, if you have 70 kids, you're talking a minimum of 2 buses taking that team. I mean, if I have 2 drivers out, I have to hire 2 separate.
Plus, I'm telling you right now, in high school soccer, coaches get their own seat. That's just how it So,
That rule is changing. But
dang it.
Well, it's gonna have to, because if you have that many kids, in order, if I don't have the drivers of the buses to do this, coaches are gonna have to fund it. Or it's gonna be one coach on per bus, and the other one is driving behind.
So I think we're gonna stumble into more unintended things like gas, sub drivers. So this gives us a solution for how do we get some like support during practice, and it also allows us. Right now, you can't take like a classified worker who works for us and have them be a coach. Just violates labor law because you can't have them drive on the clock, to Lamar, right? That's too many hours. It violates so many different stuff plus the other hours, and there's not another option. This would allow somebody who works 30 hours a week to come and practice and get money, and do something they're passionate about. We have a bus driver and we're really interested in coaching and helping the baseball team, but he's kind of locked out. And so I volunteer versus we don't have enough margins in their lives for their work. So that balance, they've got to be making money if they're in their house. And so this also opens up opportunities to coach some of the classified workers who might be willing to help with practices.
He loves coaching. He's worked with me big time as bus driver, and I cannot allow him to drive his trucks at all. So I see, yeah. But we've worked it out where I have to work on schedule with his kids to keep straight on my calendar. So we're going to good luck so far. But next year I'm going to be driving. I have one raise.
Not at the bus, right?
I think you're looking at full,
There
yeah.
are 6 people retiring that I'm taking care of, but they're going one driver.
This is our appreciation committee.
I'm also the party control. I'm the one that does all that. Oh, the email. Okay, yeah, you'll have to talk to me that way. I can't put that. Oh, the board report.
The answer is right now we have 5 people retiring.
No. We have 6 retired.
6, yeah. But yeah, another couple things on getting on the operational wish list too, as we go through that. That was one of the big changes I wanted to highlight also before I forget. You'll see the para that I added. I talked briefly about that in the report that I sent. This is just a confusion ECC. This is where we kind of go back to the confusion of how many times are you approving things. There's debate between the Ilona and Teresa transition and then the Sheila and me transition, and then me and Teresa trying to connect on what's happened in the past on how many FTE are actually approved for their building versus long-term. This is how many are currently working there. I believe they've all been approved correctly. However, there is some discussion that maybe one of these half FTEs is only for the rest of this year. I don't think that's accurate based upon how I read it, but so you're not adding any money to the budget. This is what Teresa needs to operate. We're currently paying this amount of people, so it's a way for us to just, again, let her go advertising for that position. So that's another one.
Then just real quickly on that, I just want you to know
Yeah.
the norm for boards is to approve FTE.
Yeah.
That's right. So like high school will give you 50 FTE. That's the whole board level conversation. I don't know if that would work in our town, but just to know that would be kind of the standard answer. And if Jesse wants to take his tech teacher and move him to be a Spanish teacher, that's his business. That's his job to get the job done. So we're trying to figure out and look at kind of best practice of the industry norm as we bring our habits. I think that's an obvious conversation. How can we maybe reduce some of the confusion?
Yeah.
And obviously, you guys are going to want to be involved in some of those conversations. It's a small team.
From an auditor and a legal perspective, they just care that you have the FTE approved. They don't care, is it a social studies teacher, is it a math teacher? They say that's up to your principals. It's a matter, did you approve the FTE? So we're just making sure we're following everything on that for now, and I think we want to come up with a better solution going forward. But and then the two other things I just wanted to really highlight, again, Evelyn's here tonight because of the change recess aides and bus monitor. We have 3 of those positions. We talked about them last month where they're considered substitutes, even though they're working every day on a schedule, and we'd like to put them on the salary schedule, make them a half FTE so they actually get rewarded for coming back instead of coming back for 5 years and getting nothing out of it. So that's that change, and I know it's important to Evelyn, so I want to highlight that as well, that that's on there. And then the last thing that I just want to bring up, Jody asked me a great question after I kind of sent the board report, and she said, okay, so you feel good about $700,000 to $800,000 coming from the budget in the state, which I hope you saw kind of my thoughts on that. I think we're in a good place. But she asked a good question: how do we make up the $250,000 on what's being approved on the wish list? Right now, the budget, if you go and do all the percentages, we're at about 64.5% total expenditures for the year of what we plan on, what budget expenditures, and we're roughly 70% of the way through the year. We're going to have a pretty big payout of PTO at the end of the year, but I'm expecting us to be under by about 3 or 4%, which I think I've been saying that consistently. But that's $600,000 to $800,000, and I think that now that I've got a year in the budget, I found some places where I think we can cut 10 here and 10 here, and I don't think you're actually going to be short. I think we can adjust the budget to accommodate the whole 988,000. So just something that, it was a great question by Jody, but again, I think that's been a consistent message. I hope if you haven't heard that message from me, that I anticipate we're always going to be slightly over budgeted, let me know, because I hope I've been doing that. But I do think there's some areas that we can continue to make cuts and not be overly aggressive at the same time. So. Any questions, things that didn't come up since last month before we go further with that? Oh, last thing, I'm sorry, the property liability work comp insurance. They're sending me the renewal. I still have not received the renewal, but I did talk to them. I don't expect it to go up a massive amount. And that's one of the areas where I think we're still slightly over budgeted. So we have breathing room in that area where it's not going to change the budget. So.
We already have included the increased salaries, teacher pay parity up to 2,500. That's already part of that number. And then it would just be CBT discussion to determine how that gets allocated.
Yeah. I mean, this is where we're in a slightly different, because we're doing bargaining in the spring. We're kind of coming and saying, like, how much are you comfortable with me going into the bargaining room with? That's kind of the way I'm taking it. And so basically this allows us to go in and say, we've already done steps and levels. We've already done insurance. Also, there's in the financial plan some strategy for if we screwed up the budget and we have way more money than we thought, then there's some ways to actually go about distributing the one-time dollars back to staff and back to other projects. And so this is how much we feel comfortable putting into recurring dollars, basically, so they can go and negotiate. Now, I think David and I have talked about, and we've mentioned this to CBT and other groups, there might be value in us saying, hey, there's still concern at the federal level on a few things. Head Start's one that we're really monitoring. Nothing has said we're going to lose Head Start yet, at all. But there are, in terms of the funding. However, they have closed 5 of the 10 regional offices. So we don't know what that's going to mean long term. There's potential. And if we did lose Head Start, that would mean a whole business model change for ECC. For our whole town, yes, to be clear. Yeah. But it's, in terms of the finance part of it, like, that's, again, nothing has said we're losing that funding. Every other federal funding, for the most part, has so far been moved to another department. So from the funding perspective, which is all I'm talking about right now, I don't see a dip in funding yet. But I do think there might be value in saying, hey, we're going to put $1,500 in now, and we're going to have a tentative agreement to put another $1,000 in at Christmas, as long as everything stays through the next year. But at the same time, be nimble in case something massive were to happen at the federal level. There could be value in doing something along those lines. But yeah, this would give them the opportunity to kind of negotiate that.
What kind of negotiation would you expect?
I mean, personally,
yeah.
I mean, I expect it to go pretty simple. I mean, like I said, I feel like a lot of the hard negotiations are done. We've done steps and levels. We've done insurance already, so we've put a good chunk of money into it. We're also basically saying, hey, this is technically more than we're anticipating getting. Again, I think we can make some cuts, but I'm asking the board to spend slightly more than what we're expecting to get. So that means we're having to find other areas to adjust. And there's now something in place for one-time dollars where if something does happen, then the one-time dollars are available to discuss, but we're not going to put any more money on the table than what our financial plan suggests at this point. So I don't anticipate it being an extremely difficult conversation. I'm doing a presentation the first hour, hour and a half of the meeting. I expect that the conversation, if there's a negotiation, would be something along the lines of the group saying, okay, are we comfortable just putting that in the base, or is there value in honoring by making bigger steps or something along those lines and investing that same amount of money in the salary schedule, but in a different way? I don't really have an interest or, how they do that personally. If the entire teacher staff said, hey, this is the amount of money we get, we would all support putting it into steps instead of the base. I don't know how I would argue against that. I mean,
well, I can't imagine that the bargaining aspect of it would be very hard.
Yeah.
For them, if we're just saying, here's a big gift.
Yeah.
I mean, what do we expect anything more from the people we are paying more? Didn't you mention something about that? Something kind of relatively recently about if we give more, we expect more.
Mhm.
So what are we expecting in return?
I would say the answer on that case, just to be direct, is nothing else at this time. We're just trying to keep our system up to snuff and also trying to make sure that we can take care of our workforce. So it is not a bargaining or an exchange of this for that in that sense. I think it's just simply us saying, here's our values and paying our values. So, I'm trying to really direct it. If the board wanted us to say, no, I would want something for that, then I can change the direction.
I would make an argument slightly against that. I understand what David's saying. We are not expecting more responsibilities. We are not expecting anything out of that. However, I would say if you're below market consistently, then what you can expect is to get candidates that are not as good at their job. And so you may not get more additional responsibilities or additional time or additional et cetera. But as we're talking about bringing new candidates in potentially, we're talking about longevity, and you're comparing other districts and we're below market, I feel fairly confident at that point that the bargaining is we're looking to retain and recruit better staff. Not better than what we have, but we are going to have new people coming into the district, and part of what we want to do is get the right people.
But that's what you said just before, is getting better people in.
Yeah. That's, fair.
Part of that premise then is that we're not satisfied with the ones that we have. And so that's one part. And the second is with retention, if we have employees that aren't that great, we're going to be retaining them also, right?
So I think there is, okay, let me speak it differently to what I actually mean, because I disagree with that statement. I would not say I'm unhappy with the employees we have. If you are below market and you go to bring somebody new in and you don't have the ability to bring somebody of high quality in, then in a few years, if we continue to have 4 or 5% matriculation, you will have a worse staff. I believe that wholeheartedly. Like if we lose 20 teachers over the next 4 years and we're below market over 4 years, and we continue to not be able to bring in a staff that is at least at a market level for a district our size, then I think you will have a worse staff than that. That would be my take on it. So I would not say that our staff is necessarily the problem at this point, but I would say it can quickly go that way if you not stay in market.
And with market, we mean just our market, not actually comparing it to class size or days worked, because that's what we talked about last time, and it was a point that was valid.
Yeah, I think there's a million ways you can break out that comparison, certainly. I think when we compare with the 13 districts that we compare, which is how we've always used it, which is districts our size that are getting revenue the same way we're getting revenue, we're below market. I agree with you. Like I think if you really want to pay teachers what St. Vrain is paying teachers, it's fairly simple to do. But there's other values involved in that. So, for example, you could take the 4 classrooms at every grade level that we currently have at the elementary school and say they're all averaging 24 kids. Well, you could cut one person out, you could put 8 kids in each class, and you're at a class size of 32, and yeah, you're going to be significantly higher. And that's how you get to DPS having $150,000 for secondary principals. Like, it can be done. absolutely, if that's the model that we want to look at. But at the same time, we're not comparing ourselves to those districts, and we're still below market. So that's where I would say there's a concerning factor there, personally.
And I would say, in addition to the market piece, there's just a cultural piece. And I would say as a board member, my goal would not be to pay the minimum, but to pay the maximum of what we can afford to pay. Because we do want to have great staff, and I think we also do want to honor the great staff that we already do have. And I think it sends a message, if we're constantly like trying to penny pinch and negotiate and like, we're only going to give you this if we get this in return, I think that creates a really negative culture, and a culture of like, we don't trust you, you're not working hard, we're not giving you anything else until you produce more results. And I think that's a great way to tank the morale of the district really fast. Like, I think from the board, what the teachers need to see is that we see their work, we value their work, and we want to pay them as much as we can for their work. So that would be my perspective on it. Is I really would be hesitant for teachers to hear a conversation where they feel like we're going to negotiate and if we pay more, we expect more. I think we pay more when we hold high standards, and I think that's what this stuff comes in. All the curriculum director and things that we're looking at is like, we are trying to push high standards, and we are trying to kind of rework academics and take a more direct focus to improve academic outcomes for kids. But I don't think that teacher salary should be necessarily tied to that. It's just my opinion.
Do we have a precedent for this large of a pay increase at one time that without it being a step in the
Yeah, I mean, you gave about, what, $2 million 2 years ago to this board. So there's a precedent there. And that put actually a significantly bigger pressure on the budget at that point. So I do think there's something there. Now, it wasn't part of that, but there's a precedent. So something, yeah, it's a good question, Ben, but
Ben, I just want to add the philosophy that I've kind of operated on and tried to look at everybody is say, districts our size, right? That's our market, because the revenue is all generated by per pupil count. So that's looking at 90% of revenue. What's the 50% market? What's the median? That's what we're describing as market in this analysis. And looking at it from a salary standpoint, not per diem in that case, while we've got all that stuff pulled out to try and evaluate it. And just like every other position, what's that middle number? That's what our goal is. So I just been trying to keep that philosophy. This one match that philosophy. I would just change, is there anything you think that we could ask our teachers to see? What would we ask them? What would you like us to ask our teachers to change? Maybe more days, more hours, or some other work?
we're offering a lot of curriculum help that on top of an increase salary, and they did not have that curriculum help in the past. Yet our scores have been pretty good. So we could either say we don't need it, or they're actually already doing a good job. I don't know what the answer is. But now we're adding both in and then changing the potential assistant superintendent position to, again, more of a curriculum organizer. So that's giving a lot of help, and I'm not sure which side was needed.
Makes sense.
There's also just the concern that, the volatility in the government that some people are very concerned with. Is that a good time to be spending a lot of extra money? And I understand breaking it up. So that's a valid strategy.
I think the other thing, this is where Aaron and I are saying this isn't the right, perfect way to have this conversation. Because really, if you're going to take an action, the reason you're taking an action is so that Aaron can go build the budget and bring it back to you in the May meeting. It's 99% right, so you can go publish it for 30 days. So you're trying to say, here's all the assumptions to build the budget. And yet, this one probably should be, maybe we need to amend the motion to say line 5. We approve the operational wish list, but not this thing because it hasn't been, it needs to spend some more time, right? So when we bring back the May budget, it's got that in there, but clearly I've had a chance to discuss it and understand. We're starting into negotiations, so I mean, that's gonna bring back to your recommendations, like, here's what we think, and this is what we're gonna start with. Unless somebody here said, don't do that, it should be more or less there.
Yeah, in the end, they still have to negotiate, ratify, bring it to you as a recommendation. Like, this is not approving the budget. Like, at any point, this doesn't have to be there. So that is certainly part of why I don't like the operational wish list, is because, like, at any point before June or the amended budget, you could adjust this very easily. I do want to say one more thing. This is a core belief of the business manager that you have currently. And I think it's a really understandable point that you make, Ben, about the concern about the federal government and things like that. And no other district is currently in the position that we're in. I shouldn't say no other district. Very few mountain districts, if any. I know David has said no mountain districts. It's very small, where we're growing in enrollment. We have a new formula that's been pushed through multiple times, been rediscussed at the Joint Budget Committee at the state level, and continues to be pushed through at some level. They've changed it to where it's a 7-year rollout instead of a 5-year rollout. But in every one of those situations, we're in the top tier in terms of, you can call it what you want, in terms of revenue. And so, to me, there's the mixed impact of what does your dollar buy you? So negotiations, that we said, it does buy you, in my opinion, the long-term ability to be competitive with recruiting. I also think this is to use the precedence conversation, I think that the amount of money that was passed 2 years ago was done in a bit of a reactive state. I think the amount of money that we're saying do now, we're in a very proactive state where we actually are way above everybody else. And we can be one of the few districts right now that's saying, we are going to offer, while these other places are looking at riffing and looking at cutting salaries and looking at cutting positions and looking at cutting supports, we can invest money into it. Like that, I think you get double for your dollar at that point, if that makes sense. Like, that's not the perfect.
I agree.
But at that point, that's the risk, right? Yeah, put more of my money on the table. At the same time, our system is built where if we had to collapse the system, we could do that. So I just feel like at this point, this is being one of the few districts that we put enough money on the table to say, come be a part of our district if you're really good at what you do. We want you and we're willing to invest in that. When every other district is going, what do we do right now? It just, I don't see a better time to put the money up. I mean, it's as risky as it is, it's the best use of it.
I can appreciate that. One more question is, we had talked about, where the bargaining team at one point wanted to have around 85% of resources allocated to pay, right?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, our financial plan.
Right. So are we still in that ballpark? I know that we have never made that policy, I don't think.
It's out there, it's what we publish, that's our published plan, it's not a published policy, right? The board's not campus working on that, but
So you're between 80 and 85 is the published plan. Not necessarily targeting 85, but between
Right.
80 and 85. This is going to put you at the higher end of that before you take away any subtractions from people leaving the district.
So higher end, not 87, but still in that.
No, you're still going to get 85. Yeah, you're not going to go above that at this point with this change. Because and part of that is like, I mean, little things that seem little, but if you change the superintendent from a person who's been in the district for 30 years, not 30 years, but been an administrator for X amount of years on the salary schedule. No, not you. Yeah. To a curriculum person at the salary schedule we have, like, there's savings there, there's savings already. I'm getting people, applicants that are coming in, you go, okay, this person's retiring at the end, and they're a master's 48, and now we're bringing somebody in who's a fairly new teacher. Even with a master's, it's a pretty significant savings. So that's before we get to any of those things. So I think you're going to end up between 84 at the high end, like 83 and 84 and a half. But I'll have a much more specific number for you today.
didn't you come in under the 80 last time?
So the budgeted, last year we were budgeted between 80 and 85. We came in at 79. Yeah, that was the financial, like the plan report from 2 months ago.
And that's why that changed the financial plan. Says if we would come in at 79, we would take that 1% and kick it back. It's, the board's been clear, not trying to grow our reserves of that space. So I think that's why we've been trying to build into the structures and strategies to manage that and make sure it's going to
I also think you're very close to 30% reserves, which is kind of what we talked about. That's the policy that, not the policy, but the language that was added to the financial plan that was written by the board, or at least board members. So we're going to be very close to that. We're already very close to that. And again, we're expecting to see that our budget's going to be below 100% this year if it plays out the way that I'm expecting it to. So you're going to see that potentially grow again, very minimally, but compared to what it has been growing. But I think that'll change to where you're going to be you're going to be bumping right at 30%. And so that's again what I feel comfortable saying. This is the time to put some chips on the table. I didn't mean to smack that. I did not mean to do that. That felt like an emphatic point.
So again, robust thing, it's an action item to make us to take, here are the assumptions we want you to put in the budget, which comes back, and you vote on the budget in May, then it sits for 30 days, and then you vote on it again in June. Like it's like an ad nauseum kind of vote, like how many times do I vote for this? I think we can figure out a different way, but that's how we have it structured, and it keeps it really transparent for the community.
Are we comfortable moving on this, or do we want to pull that 5-item line item out of this?
I don't need to vote.
What's that?
I don't need to vote.
You don't need to vote,
Ready for vote? All right, Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs?
Aye.
Mrs. Lumber? Aye. Mrs. Pascal?
Aye.
Ms. Schiffern?
Just want to say thank you for pushing this.
Yeah. I agree with you.
It's important. That's why that's your guys' job.
Okay, into board communications and committees reports. Andy, Lucy's?
We have a meeting on Thursday, but I haven't had the packet that David did, so. I
Yep,
don't know if
everything's in
there's
good shape. They're trying to get better at the professional learning, which supports alternative education teachers. That's an area where they do need to grow. They've self-identified it. They're putting strategies in place to get better. So I can't ask and I keep their budget flat. They're really running a lot. So, and our solution this year of having our own special ed coordinator has been fabulous for our staff.
Okay, facilities committee. Karen, it's you.
Well, I missed the walkabout. What was that? It was really good. Good. And then
I just say HEA, it's
Yeah.
the budget is great. There's no concern for the HEA construction project. Budget's in a great place. Timeline's in a great place. We paid in the parking lot. It starts to really tell you how close it is. They're putting in the kickboards and the baseboards now. By the end of the week, they're talking about all the ceiling tiles in. So it's on the pace. They've done a very good job of managing the project.
the Blackflex, we're meeting this week.
Yeah, next week.
Everybody knows about that.
No, but we do think we may have, or we may be a contract. We may be the space for those contracts to take action on for this, but it's not. Public usage, very thoughtful. That is all based around making sure we take care of the current matters. There's no scenario where we can just take massive action, but being very thoughtful and taking care of it.
Any movement with the county?
We have presented another contract to the county. It was supposed to be on the April 15th commissioner meeting. It's been pushed to the May 1st commissioner meeting. And we took another step.
Can I just recognize too, we did have Dan Short with us tonight for a brief time, who's the financial guy at the county. So I was at the meeting part of the night, so recognize that. But yeah, just, I don't know what capacity, but just recognizing
Okay, communications. Jen, I've been kind of out of the loop.
So
feel like David will probably be spending a lot of time collating a lot of information, so we can probably just drop that conversation for now. David's already made some good points.
I'm excited. I think we're on pace with that meeting that communications going on, which is, I just want to say, someone's from the best place for a community really feel strong and somebody over there, all right, we'll trust you with that notice. It's you and your stuff. It's allowing us to have conversations. And things like you guys serving coffee, it's part of the communication plan. And that is a meeting that has been well received by staff. So we're talking about some of the things we don't always talk about, which I think makes healthy conversation. It's ready to turn around and start messaging new forms and things.
Good. Casby.
I mean, most of the emails are about that board docs type thing or whatever that is. Regional meetings resume in August, guys. I don't know if you remember those. We did one at the middle school library. I find those to be interesting. It's cool to chat with board members from other areas. I'm not hearing as much legislatively other than budget. David, do you still get stuff from Rural Alliance? Do they stop doing that?
No, I still have that. I can send it to you today's update.
Oh, thanks.
The hard part right now is when you look at all those updates and we're just, our story doesn't match where everyone else is either listening, how they see things, and definitely we're just in a very strong position academically within the operation and finances that very few districts are enjoying, so their stories are not the same as ours. So that's what I say.
Okay. Dak, any updates, bud?
I have not heard much from Dak lately. No update.
I like that. Future business. Anybody have any topics they want to bring to the board for the future? Okay. Well, our next meeting is May 13th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Any volunteers for agenda review with Joe and David? Did you say you want to do it?
Rapidly this school year.
All right, need a motion to adjourn.
So,
All right.